Okay, welcome back. 6 weeks to go.
Yeah.
6 weeks ago, we've did 15 third reads this week. We're getting close to 100.
Yeah.
Which is unprecedented.
Well, it's that gets us up over our first term in here.
I have to apologize to the audience. We have our puppies in the room, so every now and then you'll hear a whine. But
It's kind of like being on the floor.
It's kind of like being on the floor. Yes.
Well, now it won't be all from the puppies. Some of the whining will be from the guests.
This is the budget week.
Yeah.
I invited our guest, Darin
See if you can say it
Chappell.
correctly.
I will say her. I've mispronounced his name now for 4 years. I've called him Daryl.
What?
Chappell.
It's Darin? It's not Daryl?
Chaparral.
It's not Daryl.
So
Daryl.
he didn't know who I was, and nor should he have. But I was on his
Still
committee,
doesn't, by the
So
way.
I just made names up.
and he couldn't pronounce my name correctly, and it got to be funny. So he calls me by a different wrong name almost every time.
Yeah,
Well, actually, that's what he does anyway. It's not an accident. He's not doing that on purpose.
It's budget week. I brought you in because you and Don are both budget pins around here. You probably know more about the budget than any of us. Certainly more than me.
Which is scary, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that is kind of scary, but as it works out, that's what it was. This week we talk about the bills we did. These were the bills we third read this week. It was like 15 of them. And if you want to know what we do, trying to absorb all the information in all of this is a lot of what we do.
And that's been pretty much a weekly thing since we hit the ground running.
Before we get into the budget, we had one heck of a bill in committee. It was the Senate sent us over a bill, which was Senate Bill 10. It's kind of interesting. It did something that's unprecedented. I've never seen it before. It had 28 different previously passed bills that were tax credits that were given around the state that we, with our good judgment, put sunsets on them. And they sent over a bill that would eliminate the sunsets on these 28 pieces of legislation, which I think was unanimously rejected. Well, we haven't voted on it.
I haven't voted on it yet,
but
Nobody's happy about it.
safe to say we've got a little heartburn with it.
Yeah. So we, hi puppy, you're gonna join the thing? Okay.
Might as well.
You can join.
Well,
Gotta sit down though.
Yeah, so now
This is Buster. Anyway, I don't know where that bill's going to end up. I know we're not going to pass it out of committee with 28 sunshine requests.
well, not in its current form. That thing is I think it's a bridge too far.
Yeah, and certainly there was a lot of those credits that did good stuff, and we should probably keep it, but we're not going to do it in this format. And that's kind of some of the things we do around here. It's not always what we pass. Sometimes it's what we
Well,
don't
let's
pass.
talk about that for a minute. That bill was originally about the way the state contracts with construction providers. It had to do with design build contracting and construction manager at risk, which that's obviously I have a lot of experience in that realm, and I do have some appreciation for those particular methods, but that's still, I even think that language needs a little bit of work. But that's how that thing morphed from that, how the state contracts with contractors, into this thing with sunsets.
And without getting into the weeds,
Yeah.
We now have this monster bill that we have to deal with, and we are going to deal with it. It's not going to pass in its current form. I'm probably not going to do a lot of talking today because I got two experts here on the budget, and we're going to start with our guest, Representative Chappell or Chaparral or Darin or Daryl, whoever you are. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you think about the budget.
Well, thank you. My actual name is Darin Chappell,
says.
and
He.
Wow. Let me write that down.
yeah, and I represent the 137th district, which is in Greene County, the eastern third, and southern part of Springfield. And I've been focused on the budget. My background is in public budgeting and finance for years and years.
I
And
never heard that before.
Yeah, I know. And so I have focused on that since I came into the House, and I it's the only constitutionally mandatory thing the House does, and I think it's extraordinarily important. A lot of people, their eyes glaze over. They don't want to talk about the budget and the numbers, and I get that. I really truly do, but. I was told when I first came in the House, you can be a budget guy or you can be a policy guy. The budget is policy. I don't care how ridiculous your idea is. If we don't fund it, you can't do it.
That's true.
And so the budget
what
is
did we
policy.
fund? What did we?
Yeah, you have a hard time finding something we do policy-wise that isn't connected to the budget. As you
Absolutely.
pointed out, it's our only constitutional duty. We could do that and go home, and the taxpayers would have got what they paid for,
And probably be better off
and
in
be
most
way
years.
better off.
Yeah. So the budget this year has come in from the House at just under $48 billion, which is nearly $6 billion less than what the governor had requested,
Right.
Yeah.
and roughly $2 billion less than what we saw go through last year.
Now, let me ask you this: do we believe that the Senate will do the same thing, or do you think they'll add something to it?
You never know what the Senate's going to do. It can get to be about personality as much as anything else, and
But history says that they're going to.
they're going to
probably
want to spend some money. Yeah.
Well, let's put a little perspective on that. The final budget in 2025 was $47 billion, and on the operating side, right? And because this is still not the capital improvements and those things that we are also going to do, but in 2024 it was $40.2 billion on the operating alone.
Their actual expenditures. We appropriated $51.2 billion, but they spent $40 billion.
Right.
And when I say that, so we appropriate 51.2 last year. They only spent 40, and people go, "Oh, that's great." They're not spending everything. That's one way to look at it. Here's another. It's more than 25% over appropriated. And what the attempt this year is to try to right size the budget so that we can actually see what's being spent versus what's being appropriated, because it's so complex and convoluted, the budgetary process. I mean, Donna and I have been working on this since even before we came back to be sworn in for this
And
session.
by the way, I'm going to pause right here because I want to show a picture of what the budget books look like. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's in my office. It's my cowboy hat, and I stack them up. People come by and have their picture taken next to it all the time.
Yeah.
But at any rate, it's so convoluted and complex that we've been working on this for 3.5 months, and you want to make sure that everything that has to be taken care of is taken care of. That we
It's an annual budget. Right?
Yeah, and that we get the best rate of return on the investment of taxpayer dollars. This is not our money, as some of our colleagues have forgotten from time to time.
Yeah.
It's taxpayer dollars, and we have a distinct responsibility to make sure that not 1 cent of this is wasted in any way, and that's the effort.
And I kind of set you up for that one a little bit on identifying the lapse, because a significant part of our budget for years, and a few of us have been complaining about this, is that there is an amount of money that does not get spent by that department, and a lot of times that's significant. For instance, if they might be budget authority for $13.5 million, and the most they've spent in the last 3 years out of that line is $3.5 million. Well, what do you need the additional $10 million of appropriation for? Sometimes there's a good reason,
Yeah,
but a lot of
it's the
times,
hope that there'll be federal funds that will fill that or something like
no,
that.
it's not really even that. It's just it's been the tradition to keep that line in there the way it was, and Darin, whatever we're calling him this week, has been really good about searching out those lapses. We call that a lapse in
How much did you
appropriation.
find this year?
This year I found $845.7 million that I was able. That's not what I found. That's what I got cut out. I found 1.1 billion.
And without cutting anybody's budget.
Right.
There's no stress to any department. Nobody loses their job. That was just that lapse in funding. So
And people
good
say,
job.
well, thank you. And people say, well, if that's true, there's no cut, then what big deal that you got rid of the lapse. But it is a big deal.
It is a very big deal.
Because when the national government funding goes away and we no longer can draw from those resources, which I hope it does, because that's our tax dollars too, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But when that goes away and the departments say, well, we've been funded at this rate for so many years, we need the General Assembly to make up the difference.
Right.
Well, there is no more money for that.
Right.
And so we have to wean ourselves off
Correct.
of this extravagant budgetary lifestyle to which they become accustomed. And you're right. The reason why it's there, for the most part, is people saying, well, we've always done it this way.
Right.
Yeah.
And,
One of the big things that we're going to hear about in the budget is the governor came out and said we weren't going to fund the entire
Foundation
budget
formula.
foundation
Yeah.
formula.
And we did.
Talk a little bit about what we did fund.
Well, in the pantheon of lies, right? There's lies, there's bald-faced lies, and then there's revenue projections. So, I mean, we don't. You have to have something to go off of, but the reality of it is we can see the history of what we're doing, and education is no different.
Right.
And so
Let's get back to education
Right.
because we are short on time.
So you got the foundation formula, and the way in which the foundation formula has been prior to this year, not only did we fund it, we fully funded it, and we exceeded the foundation formula for last year the way it was established. This year, though, the Missouri State Board of Education, on their own, changed the numbers, and we can get into that another time, but they changed the numbers, and that dumped a $300 million burden on the General Assembly in order for us to say we fully funded it. But it's a made-up number.
But what our funding compared to last year? What is that?
Well, our funding compared to last year, depending on which line item it is that you're looking at, it could be argued it's $500,000 less, but in other areas it's significantly more than that. We are keeping pace with two factors. One, what the foundation formula as it has been requires, and two, the number of students that are continuing to go to the public school, because we're losing public students.
Now, the budget chair said today that we have appropriated a record amount of money to education. Now, what you just said didn't actually say that. Was he not telling?
No, he was telling the truth. It's like everything.
What line it on?
Three.
Kind
Yeah,
of
but I mean, if you have three blind guys go up and touch an elephant and then ask them to describe what an elephant is, you get three different answers depending on what part they got a hold of, and it's the same thing here, right? So, but the budget chair is correct. We are still funding education at a rate that they've never seen before.
Well, so in that, fully funding the foundation formula, fully funding the transportation reimbursement formula, an additional $200 for career ladder,
$200?
and those kind of things, $200 million for career ladder, and the teacher's minimum salary, which is still outside the formula. The governor is correct. We have got to do something with the foundation formula. If you expect more money to go into education, we have to fix the foundation formula or get rid of it and do it through the normal appropriation process without the benefit of the formula. The governor is 100% correct. The only way that we can change the dynamic there is by doing something with the foundation formula.
And it was suggested on the floor today that what the governor wanting to redo the foundation formula was code for cutting schools' budgets, and I still wonder where he finds that code book, but I don't believe that's true.
Only, and this has been said by many people over the years, but only in government is not getting as much increase as you wanted considered a cut.
I know.
You get $100 budget, and we're going to bump you to 150, but you wanted 200. You cannot then come back and say, "Oh, you cut us 50." Well, that's just ridiculous. But that's what plays on social media and in the mainstream media, and it's up to us to stand up and say it's ridiculous.
But the bottom line is we've not cut a dime out of education. We've actually put 200 more million into education this year than we ever have before.
Once again, that funding is directed through the foundation formula. So no program, not one school lost anything in this process. And at the same time, what did we find out earlier this session, Darin, that the average amount of reserves in our public schools is 25%, about 25%. And so the minimum is 8%. So we are significantly above what even DESE has as a rule, that schools maintain an 8% reserve.
Can I say one more thing about education?
You can say whatever you want.
So you hear this a lot, that Missouri is dead last in education funding from the state, among the other states of the union. And I need people to understand, Missouri funds education differently than nearly any other state. We may be the only ones that do it exactly like this. Schools get money directly from the national government. Schools get money from the state. And schools get money from your local taxation for your local school district. The smallest piece of that pie is the state funding. The biggest piece of that pie is your local funding, because that's where you have control over your school board candidates, your school board directions, which superintendent they hire or keep or don't. And so the bulk of the power comes from your local school district. And we shouldn't have near the say that you do at home. So it's unfair and unjust to suggest that we're failing because we are not funding from the state education the way some other states do. If you take national, state, and local combined, last numbers I saw, we ranked 27th out of the nation, which is right in the middle of the pack, even though our cost of living is significantly lower than some of the others. So the reality of it is that my family's public educators. I'm proud of the fact that we support our public schools. We're not anti-public schools or public education, but I am anti-bad government, and I'm really anti-bad budgeting.
Okay. Well, we got to move on. We're just going to not even talk about your favorite part. That's the transportation part.
Well, transportation funding, it's leveled out, but right now transportation budget is $4.2 billion. $389 million of it is general revenue alone in this very budget.
I thought we didn't give them anything because it was all the gas tax.
Wow. Yeah. And so we passed the gas tax because they were $800 million underfunded, but we can get into that in a future one. But last year it was $4.7 billion, and that was 15% of an overall increase. But 70% of that increase was in GR alone. Now, let's compare that to 2024 at the $341 million. But let's go back to 2022, so everyone's got a perspective. There was an overall 11% increase, and only $107 million was GR. So we all know what happened in between was we decided to make some pretty poor buying decisions with some reserve money. Unfortunately, we're going to find that we're going to be needing that reserve here in just a few years.
Okay.
What people need to understand about the budget is that we're not like Washington. We can't just print more money.
Right.
So we have a finite pie, and we cut off a slice here, and we cut off a slice there, and offer some to this project or department. But when it's gone, it's gone. And
so we are constitutionally required to have a balanced budget.
We are.
Right.
But beyond that, even if we balanced, eventually you run out of the money. If you're balanced, but you're still not fiscally responsible, you can be both balanced and fiscally irresponsible. And when the money's gone, the money's gone.
That's sort of the public.
Right.
Wrong.
As Margaret Thatcher said, sooner or later you run out of somebody else's money.
Right. Well, that's the problem with socialism, she said. But the reality of it is there needs to be a return on investment. Now, we are not a business, so we're not looking to make a profit.
Right.
But there should be something that the public is getting out of it. And so from when you guys first came into the House to today, the budget has increased just over 76% in those 6 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Nobody, and I mean nobody, believes that they're getting 76% better government.
Yep.
Well, and I've heard over and over again that we underfund our education. Since I've been in the House for 6 years, it's gone up 51%.
Well, and it should be
And that's
pointed.
just from us.
That's
It
just
should,
from us.
it should be pointed out that we fully funded the transportation formula for 10 years now.
Yes. Any other areas in the budget we should be talking about?
We probably don't have enough time for
Yeah,
it. But,
unfortunately.
I think people need to understand that that the representatives that serve on the budget committee this year, I think, have been some of the hardest working, some of the most, even Republican and Democrat. We've tried to work
Oh,
hard
absolutely.
together. We've been respectful. We've tried to look at the black and white numbers. It's not about party. We know the money's getting tight. We have to pull together in order to make this work. And our budget chair, Dirk Deaton, has done a fantastic job. Our vice chair, Bishop Davidson, and I'm a sub-approach chair, and the others. We've worked really hard together to get this done, and frankly, I'm proud of this year's budget.
Well, I think you all did one heck of a job. I know the hours that were put in were crazy. I'm very, very thankful that you did it and I didn't have to do it. I'm one of the policy guys. I work on a lot of policy, besides what the budget policies. But thank you all for coming. This is Peanut and Buster. This was their week in the Capitol. My wife had to go away, and they decided they were going to be my office mates for the week. And generally, this is what they did all week. They're not really good workers. They like to sleep a lot. But
Jim, the problem with our guest this week,
what's that?
I think he's grumpier than us.
The three of us,
sometimes.
Combined, it's like saying Beetlejuice's name 3 times. I mean, the grouch factor is pretty amazing. I do want to say about the budget though, we're not done.
No.
I'm proud of this year.
Yeah.
We've still got another $6 billion or so we need to cut out
Right.
of there. So we're not done.
18,
but thank
19,
you.
and 20. Yeah.
Well, thanks again for watching. We'll try to boil this down to an amount of time that you can actually watch it in one trip to the Capitol. But you have a great day, and thanks a lot.